So thank you all for joining us today for today's product webinar. I'm Edward Major, the product marketing manager here at Reading Horizons, and I'm joined by two of our education specialists, Sean Lindsey and Katie Shelton, and our product manager, Todd Patch. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Sean and Katie.
All right, so we want to hear from you first. So we'll start with a poll question. If you could make sure in the chat that it is toggled on to everyone, if you're comfortable with that. And we would love to see and hear from you. And the question is, what challenges is your district or school facing when it comes to foundational literacy? What brought you here today? What are maybe some things you're looking for?
Or is everything sunshine and roses? Can it be? Do you think it is, Katie?
Maybe it is. If it's sunshine and roses, say all good. I just want to hear you all talk. Identifying available resources. Many hours when I taught 3rd and 4th grade were spent scouring Google and other websites.
Oh yeah. Upper elementary schools, they're missing some of those skills due to the pandemic. Absolutely. And we're going to have to be prepared for that whole MTSS boom that happens as those students get into 4th and 5th and 6th grade.
Absolutely. Meeting the demands with budget. Absolutely. Oh, I see one that speaks to my heart. Teachers aren't always confident in teaching phonics. That was me. I'll admit, for a long time ago, I was very ill-prepared.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
And then on the other end, we have people who are going through letters training, which we know is that phonics training, but how do you actually implement that into the classroom every single day?
Mm-hmm.
And morphology, that's just a scary word in general.
Awesome. Thank you all for sharing. We appreciate that.
Awesome. Well, what we want to do is introduce you to who we are and the reason why we're here today. So we're going to start off by telling you a little bit about Reading Horizons. In order to do that, I have to take you a little bit into a time machine. And I'm going to take you back to the late 1970s, where our program's creator, Charlotte Lockhart, was a classroom teacher like many of you all. And she had a passion for helping students learn to read. So she created this program, like you see there in that orange book, called Discover Intensive Phonics for Yourself. And the premise was simple: teach every kindergarten through 3rd grade student foundational literacy using that structured literacy approach, that systematic approach, which is very similar to an Orton-Gillingham method, which she knew was used to teach students who were diagnosed and were struggling with dyslexia. She figured that if Orton-Gillingham works for students who are struggling the most, then all teachers and all students should have access to that same type of instruction and have that same opportunity to learn. So fast forward to 2022, fast forward to today, we're going to talk a little bit about that Orton-Gillingham based method, but we're also going to focus mostly on the changes that the changes that we've made to our original program. What has really changed is our ability to make this a seamless approach for teachers and help them to take the guesswork out of structured literacy. So since I'm telling you about Reading Horizons, I want to start off by telling you about these 3 pillars. And this is what we really sink our teeth into. This is what we do at Reading Horizons. But this is also our agenda for the day. So I'm going to start off by talking about that data-driven impact, fostering reading proficiency through that scientifically proven approach. This is typically the part that can be challenging for teachers, taking all this data from multiple sources, whether it be assessments, whether it be skill check, anecdotal classroom notes, and then quickly using that to inform instruction. We're going to show you today our solution to that. If we're also going to empower those students of today to become those lifelong readers, we have to use an engaging approach. And this engaging approach is exciting and engaging for teachers as well. The last thing that we are is we just pride ourselves in being that supportive partner. And so what we've done is redesigned our lessons to make everything that seamless approach for teachers. So everything from the design of the lesson to the lesson delivery tool to the scripted curriculum was designed to be created. It was created to be highly effective, but just low prep for teachers. So talk to us a little about why this is just so important, Katie.
Well, the reason we are all here today talking about reading instruction is because learning to read is not a natural process. Anyone who maybe you struggled to read yourself, maybe it was a challenge for you, or anyone in this room who's a teacher and has had students that we're trying to teach them to learn how to read, it can be a struggle, right? And the reason behind that is because learning to speak, that's the natural part. And children are able to learn how to speak without any formal training. And most children are learning to speak before the age of 2. But here's the difference. Reading is a man-made invention. So because of that, it must be taught clearly and explicitly. When we're looking at where we are as a nation and what the research is showing us, the research says that 95% of our third graders are cognitively capable of reading proficiently, 95%. But when we look at that data nationwide, unfortunately, what we're seeing is 64% of students are not reading proficiently by the end of third grade. And we know that 75% of those students will never catch up. We know what an insurmountable challenge illiteracy is for our learners. So this tells us how crucial and important it is that we are here to evaluate reading materials to ensure that they are research-based and effective strategies for all students.
So, and that's what we did too. We listened to you all as teachers, we listened to administrators, and we evaluated our own reading programs. And we've been trying to find the right solutions. And we've been doing this for some time now, but we asked ourselves, what can we do to make it better? So I see many of you using the chat feature. I'm going to read you a list of statements. I just want you to drop an exclamation mark in the chat if you agree with any of these statements as I'm reading them. So the first one is, manually trying to stay on top of each student's mastery of skills can be challenging. So drop an exclamation mark in the chat if you agree with that, right? We have lots of different data sources, lots of foundational skills, lots of benchmarks to gather data about for our students, right? I see those exclamation marks, exactly. And we have to try and find that for all of our students. Next one, pulling resources to help students transfer their skills is a massive undertaking. So how much time are teachers spending? We're talking nights, after schools, weekends, trying to find just the right materials. That's a lot of time. We want to make sure that that's a little bit more seamless. Third, compiling student data to inform small groups requires long hours and late nights. I'm going to be really honest. I'll be vulnerable. I'm ashamed. Sometimes I didn't change my groups for weeks because it was just such a huge, massive undertaking. And so we want to make that simpler for you. Another thing we found, remembering the just right thing from training at the just the right moment can be challenging. We also know that initial PD that you have over the summer, all those people that are going through letters training right now, it can be so impactful, but it can sometimes be like drinking from a fire hose. So it's hard to remember all those things. And the last is that selecting supplemental reading programs is overwhelming. There's just so many. And so we've listened and we found solutions to all of those problems, and we're going to talk about that today. But one thing that's not changing is the research. So Katie, can you tell us a little about that engine behind the hood?
Yeah, so if you've never seen, which I have a feeling it's familiar to many of you, this is Scarborough's reading rope. It shows us all the different components that work together and intertwine to create those strong, skilled readers. We know that, like the rope metaphor, if one strand of the rope is weak, it will affect the strength of the entire rope. So it is crucial that we focus on all of these areas. If you're unfamiliar with Reading Horizons as a program, we focus on these bottom 3 strands: phonologic awareness, decoding and encoding, and sight recognition as a program. I know when I was teaching, I had one manual for phonemic awareness. I had one manual for phonics. They didn't always talk to one another or correlate. That was more manuals for me to put in my teacher tote bag and take home every night. And it's a lot to juggle, right? So as a program, we intertwine phonemic awareness and phonics. The research shows us that when we are teaching these two together, they have a reciprocal relationship. One strengthens the other, and they lead to better outcomes for your students. So with these word recognition strands, we teach all of these components explicitly. We get our students increasingly automatic with these skills so that their cognitive bandwidth is more accessible to access those higher level demands of language comprehension, because you, as a skilled reader, you're not using all of your cognitive energy to coding your way through text. You're thinking your way through text, and that's where we aim to get all of our readers. The other thing as a program that we wanted to mention with our instructional approach is that we are an Orton-Gillingham-based program. And so looking at those principles, our program is explicit. So with our phonics and phonemic awareness, we're clear and direct. We're not leaving things up for student discovery. We're systematic. Our skills move from simple into the more complex. It's cumulative. So each day we're applying this to speech, writing, spelling, and reading. And then it's multisensory. We want to teach the way our students learn best. So it's visual and auditory, but it's also tactile and kinesthetic. As a program, we use a marking system, which you can see on the right side of your screen. The point of the marking system is to serve as a visual cue, help our students to identify those patterns that do exist within the English language. We want those patterns to jump out to them. If you're a math person, it's like a formula to help unlock the code of the English language. There are only 9 primary marks throughout our program, so it's consistent and easy for our students to learn. Now, Sean and I are not going to focus as much on the markings or the phonics scope and sequence or those pieces of it today, but if you want to schedule time with us to go into more depth on these, we're always happy to do this. Sean, what are we talking about today?
Yes, we are here because we have a new tech-enabled lesson delivery tool, which just simply puts foundational literacy at your fingertips. So you have that proven effective instructional model, like Katie mentioned, based on the research, based off of the Orton-Gillingham method. It's scripted with daily lessons. In real time, you're also able to collect that assessment data for your students, and it even will group your students for you daily automatically, puts them into small groups, and provides you as the teacher with small group resources and activities for those small groups. It just really, it takes the guesswork out of all of that structured literacy and really helps you to be able to apply it in the classroom very simply. So how do we do that?
Well, we take the guesswork out with a clear instructional daily cycle for the teacher. And so this is what it looks like, taking the teacher all the way from lesson prep all the way to the end to a data-driven decision, because as a structured literacy program, the question always is, are my students ready to move on? Are they proficient with these foundational skills? Or do I need to go back and reteach and ensure proficiency at the base before moving forward? We'll speak to all these components throughout today's time. And the way we're going to speak to them is with this new Reading Horizons Discovery digital tool. It was created to really streamline this instruction for teachers. So on this digital component, you'll have your lesson content, your resources, your data, and your differentiation all right there in the palm of your hand. This tool that you'll log into will provide you with everything that you need for foundational literacy right there when you need it. So the dashboard you can see here will provide you with a quick link to what lesson you are ready to teach that day, plus access to all of your other lessons. At this point, we're going to move to a split screen model, because on the left side, I'm going to walk you through that instructional cycle model. And on the right, we wanted Sean to actually show you what the digital tool looks like. So he'll be walking you through that piece of it.
Awesome. So we'll start off with lesson prep. So what does it mean to prepare for your lesson? It's very simple. You're going to start off by clicking go. It's designed with simplicity in mind. And when you're preparing for that lesson, that part of that teacher instructional cycle, you'll see right up here is that just-in-time professional development. So if you want to remember a quick refresher from your summer training or from that phonics training that you're having currently, you just click a quick video that's going to show you what it looks like in the classroom, or it's going to give you a quick preview of what that research shows you. It also gives you a preview of the lesson in 4 parts, so I can see that, as well as the teacher and the student materials. As I continue to prepare for my lesson, I need my learning objectives. What are my students learning? And what are those student-friendly I can statements that I might need to write up on my up on my whiteboard? I'll continue to scroll down, and from there, I can preview my lesson. Now from here, you'll see my scripted teacher manual. It has everything that I need to say, as well as the students' intended responses. I can, along the way, see those teacher tips that can help me to prepare for instruction, as well as adding some notes off to the side as a teacher that I might want to reference during my lesson.
I like this part, Sean, because I was, if you're typically, we want to say maybe you're prepping the night before, maybe you're prepping that morning, but, realistically, does that always happen? No, of course not. You're running late, you're running in the door, you're probably prepping right before your kids come back in from recess or lunch, and it's quick, right? You don't have a ton of time. So this was designed to be 10 minutes or less, because like Sean mentioned in the beginning, with nights and weekends, that should be for you as the teacher. So we want this part of the process to be quick and easy. So then the next step that you'll move into is the whole class lesson. You can take a look at the video on the left, just so you can see what a Reading Horizons Discovery lesson would typically look like. You'll teach your lesson using that lesson delivery tool. This is designed so you can access it on a laptop or a tablet, and you can be mobile and walking around your classroom. You can screencast visuals on the board for the day and take observational student data as the students are interacting with the lesson using whiteboards and markers.
So like she mentioned, when you're ready to deliver that lesson, you click that blue button that says deliver lesson, and you have your scripted manual once again right here on your screen with a few of those added benefits. So off to the right, you'll see I can click that blue broadcast feature that allows me to screencast or screen mirror, sort of share my screen with my students, share anything that I would typically be writing on the board, any visual cues or anchor charts that I would typically be sharing with my students. I can project that onto the board from my iPad while I'm walking around the classroom. Now, while I'm doing that, I can also take some anecdotal notes on how my students are performing along the way with those particular skills. I can even get more granular as well by noticing if my students have pronunciation, decoding, or even just attention issues along the way.
Absolutely. So then after you teach, the question always is, how did my instruction land, right? Who got it? Who didn't get it? Who do I need to reteach? I know when I was teaching, I often had students that really thought they were getting it. I was like, this kid, they're fine. And then we got to that chapter or unit test, and ooh, was I wrong. And I really wished I had caught it sooner. So the skill checkup is designed so that you get that data right away. Something was going on behind the scenes when Sean hit that deliver lesson button. That students on their side, they were automatically assigned a skill check that correlates to the lesson of the day. So at this point in the lesson, the students will get out their devices, log into their student portal, and answer 3 to 5 quick questions. It's gamified for the students, so it's fun and easy. And you can think of this like an exit ticket. How did my instruction land that day? So then as that data starts to trickle in and your students start to finish that skill checkup, Sean's going to show you what that looks like from the teacher side.
Cool. This is one of the coolest pieces. Look, as they're taking that skill checkup, automatically, it's going to aggregate in the moment. So I can see right here, 6 out of 20 of my students have finished the skill checkup. Now, 10 of them have finished the skill checkup. Now, slowly over time, the rest of that data is going to trickle in. Over to the side, I still have that whole class observation data that I took along the way over here that I can reference. Now, I can see, like Katie mentioned, how did my instruction land for that particular skill? We have that data right there in the moment for my students. I see right there, 80% of my students are at level or above level on that particular skill. I still have 3 students who need intervention group instruction. And then I also have no data, unfortunately, for those 3 students. Now, that might not necessarily be a bad thing. Maybe that one student was in the bathroom. Maybe they had a vision screening. Maybe they got pulled out for additional services. We know as classroom teachers that things happen. And so this is just a reminder to us as a teacher, what are our next steps with those students? So from there, this is the cool part. Now I have all my classroom data. I can click my blue button for my groups and centers, and it automatically groups my students into 3 different small groups. So my intervention group is here, my practice group is here, and my enrichment group. We haven't forgotten about the students who need to be pushed. We have small group lessons built for for all 3 of those for all 3 of those groups. And then I can also see immediately, I can pull my small group. That is a scripted lesson plan for all those small groups, as well as I can continue to collect group or small group anecdotal notes for students that are performing on or off grade level with that particular skill. Another thing that you'll see on that screen is I also have my start timer button. I can immediately project a timer that I can use for pacing. So I can use that for me as a teacher for pacing, or for my students who are not with me. So actually that brings up a good question. I have my small groups that are coming to me as the teacher, but what are my students doing that are not with the teacher?
What a good question, right? This is where I spend a lot of time on Google as a teacher. Is like, the kids who are at my table, I know they're getting good stuff, right? They're engaged, they're with me, they're ready. What about the other kids? So we've got you covered there. You've got your teacher-led center that Sean walked you through. And then for your other students, it's recommended that they have to non-negotiable centers that they get done, and then optional get to centers when they finish. What this looks like is that students will have a physical transfer book where they will be working on transferring their skills into connected text. So students will be practicing with fluency, They'll be practicing reading words at the word, sentence, and passage level. We'll be bridging students into decodable text with comprehension questions. All of this is designed so that our students have ample practice, because we know that is what helps get them to that automaticity piece. There's also more software activities that your students will be doing when they are in their small groups independently. It's that gamified student software, that skill checkup data that informed your small group instruction, but that also is going to inform for your students the type and number of activities that they will be doing independently. So if your student scored below 60% in the red, as you can see here on the screen, they'll be doing all 3 activities. Students who scored in the yellow will be doing 2, and then students who scored in the green just do 1. This ensures that that individual practice is really targeted to each student to help them reach that skill mastery. These activities are also going to vary in level of difficulty. So activity 1 is a multiple choice activity. Activity 2 is spelling. And then activity 3 is working with words in context. So we're scaffolding up to the most difficult task. These are also developmentally grade level appropriate. So you can see a kindergarten example on the top left, a first grade example on the bottom left of activity 1. And then on the right, you can see an example of activity 2. Here's another great piece, because like I said, when my kids are with me at table, I know they're focused. They're right next to me. What about the kids over there on the other side of the classroom, right? You'll get another data point at the end of center time. This is going to be a post-skill checkup. So now we can answer that question of, during small group instruction, are my students learning? Are my students growing? And you have an additional data point about how your small group instruction informed their performance. Based on that data, after they complete that post-skill checkup, then they will have access to self-selected reinforcement activities on that software so that they can take ownership in that process too. Now, at the end, we told you that this would get to a data-driven decision. So this is the end of our instructional cycle, and all of those data pieces, that observational data, that skill check data, that post-skill checkup data, the small group observations, all of it is going to combine into this impact screen. And here's what you'll be able to see. You'll be able to see a snapshot of your whole class. You can see in this example that 80% of my class are at or above grade level. Then you can see which students are still going to need additional instruction, maybe on a review day, really going over that with them again. Then as the teacher, because you are still the ultimate decision maker in your classroom, you can select whether you are ready to move on with your class and teach the next lesson, or you can select the day to reteach, and that ends that day's instructional cycle.
So we talked about a lot of things, a lot of changes that we're making to the new Reading Horizons Discovery. And I want to remind you of the problems that you mentioned earlier today in the chat. I want to wrap up by discussing really just those solutions that we mentioned. So remember how we said we're manually trying to stay on top of all of your students' mastery of skills can be challenging. Now you've got that real-time student tracking, those skill checks, and all of that data that Katie just mentioned syncs back to you as the teacher. You also have all your resources that are embedded into the lesson, and many of those resources can be downloaded. They can be printed. You don't have to spend your precious nights, your precious weekends trying to find just the right resources for all of your small groups and centers. Everything is really built in. You also don't have to be stressed about making small groups anymore. All your data is aggregated automatically to create those small groups automatically and dynamically. So every single day, you know that you're giving students exactly what they need. Now, if your student or if your teachers need that quick refresher before that lesson, or if they need to review during PLCs, you still have that on-demand professional learning, all of those short training videos that are going to accompany every single lesson. And you don't have to worry about choosing between multiple supplemental curriculums anymore, because now you have one all-inclusive tool built in for phonological awareness and phonics in one seamless program. So let's wrap up today. Let's hear from you all. I'm going to send a poll out to you all now, but what are you most excited about in the new version of Reading Horizons Discovery? Once that poll launches, you should see it pop up on your screen, and you can choose more than one answer. So what are you most excited about? Is it that just-in-time professional learning? Is it the automatic grouping for small groups? Is it that student observation tool, that red, yellow, green? I'm seeing a bunch of you guys are responding already. Is it the lessons, the insight screen that shows you how did your instruction land on your students? Is it the student skill activities? Is it the the things that students get to choose on their software, or is it that teacher dashboard? There's one more, or is it the screen sharing student slides? You can walk around the classroom and have the flexibility to just share your screen from wherever you are in the classroom. I see about 40 people have responded already. That's awesome.
Yeah, a lot of people are doing what I was going to answer, and you said it too, Sean, that automatic student grouping, because then they're static. They're changing they are static. Ignore me. They're changing every day. They're flexible. That's the word I was actually looking for.
We're going to show you the results. You're going to really like the results. I agree with that.
Do you?
Yeah. That is one of my favorite things, is that the groups actually change now. The groups can change, and they change based off of how students are performing right there in the moment. It's not based off of an assessment that they took 2 months ago. Yeah. It's based off of today.
Yeah.
A lot of you guys love the student observation tool too. I think about what implications does that have for referral services, for MTSS, for parent-teacher conferences. Can you imagine like going to your parent-teacher conference and your teachers are like, hey, or your parents are like, what does my kid need to work on? And you're able to say, actually, I have 4 data points based off of their last, like yesterday's assessment, yesterday's lesson. That sounds cool.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you all for sharing and engaging with that poll. That was awesome. Let's wrap up by sharing just a little bit of time to hear from your questions and answering what other questions you have.
Yes. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Katie. We have reached the Q&A portion of the webinar. So we're going to be answering, I think there's 6 questions in the Q&A chat box. We're going to be answering those questions here right now. But if you would like to schedule a more personalized tour, this QR code here on the screen, you can go ahead and take your phone out and scan that, and it will take you to a schedule presentation form where you can go ahead and fill that out, and an AE will reach out to you and they will be able to tailor something around your specific needs. So let me go ahead and look at the QA box. Okay. So the first question we have here is this program similar to at-home program? Is that scripted for the tutor or parent? Todd, did you want to answer this one?
Yeah. So this program is designed more for a classroom setting. We haven't thought fully through what capabilities that would have in a at-home setting, but the lessons are scripted so that if you had a secondary, either a substitute or someone else coming in that isn't familiar with the program, it would be scripted. They would be delivering science-based reading instruction, and it would take little to minimal lift for them to be able to deliver that effectively.
Thank you, Todd. The next question was, is there a participation certificate emailed for this webinar? I'm not sure I know the answers to that one, to be completely honest.
I think Jeanette said that we could provide something if that was required.
Okay. Cool. Thank you, Todd. The next question was, does the update apply to current RH curriculum, or will we need to pay for the update? We have your materials, but this update is amazing. So we do, I can answer that one. So our sales leaders are working on a rollover plan for current HR customers. It just hasn't been fully fleshed out yet. So, but this is something that is top of mind and they are currently working on. So more to come on that.
And I'd say definitely reach out if you have a personal relationship with your account executive, reach out to them. They'd be more than willing to have that conversation with you as well.
Yeah. Next one is there a paper-based assessment so we can keep an eye on their handwriting? Todd, did you want to take this one?
Yeah, so with this student transfer book, there will be handwriting opportunities in there. So you would be able to do that.
Thank you, Todd. We have another one here. It's Elevate getting a 2.0 similar to this soon. Todd?
Yeah, Elevate is next. In terms of priority, we're focused on making Discovery launch. And then after we've launched our Discovery product, we'll be focusing on Elevate.
Thank you. What grade levels is your program made for? So Sean, would you like to answer that one?
Yeah, so the Discovery program that we're talking about today is meant for kindergarten through 3rd grade. Now you saw that we also have another program called Elevate, and that's meant for 4th grade and beyond. Kindergarten through 3rd is to make sure that those gaps don't happen for students at that foundational level. 4th grade and beyond is to fill the gaps in where students are.
Thank you, Sean.
Katie, did you have something else to add on to that?
Nope, that's it.
Thank you, Sean and Katie. We currently use Reading Horizons. Is this something we automatically can bump up to, or is it an upcharge? So this is kind of similar to the previous question. This is there is a rollover plan that is being worked on for current RH customers. It just hasn't been fully fleshed out yet. So I think the best way would be to contact your AE, and you can have that talk with them. Do you have incentives for consultants to help with marketing? That's a good question. I'm not 100% sure on that, but it could be something. It could be something that we could explore. We could talk about.
Ed, sorry, can we just clarify the question? Are these people that want to help us market the product, like advocates?
Yeah. Yeah. Whoever
put that one in, maybe you can elaborate a little bit in the chat.
I see they added another question. The answer is yes.
Oh, okay. So if you're interested, if you're a Reading Horizons customer and you're interested in helping market the solution, certainly you can contact us. Everybody tomorrow is going to get an email, so you could even just reply to that email and you'll be able to reach any one of us, and we'd be happy to talk to you. So thank you.
Thank you to the Reading Horizons butterfly. I am concerned that my students will lose me to a screen. Is the idea that I initially use scripts and then become proficient enough to work less with my iPad? Katie, would you like to take that one?
I would love to take this one, because what I love about this is that I know I had a lot of programs in my classroom that were teaching the student on their tech, and I didn't see a lot of growth with it. And so what I love about the way that this is designed is that the teacher is still such a critical, important piece of it. And the teacher is still working their teacher magic, because that is just irreplaceable. And so you'll have that iPad there, and you'll have that script there for ease of prep, for ease for you. I think for me, I always used to pick like the one word that didn't follow the rule, like wasn't of English origin. So you even have all your words there that match the skill you're teaching. It's just for you to have an easier experience. So absolutely, you can be glancing down at the script and using that as a scaffold, but you are still in the center of your classroom and you are still making all of those decisions. So we completely agree with you that you provide the magic in your classroom.
Katie, I'm surprised. You normally say that we bring the science, you bring the art. And I feel like that answers her question very well. I think that was a really good response. You really need to bring the art of teaching, but we have the science for you guys.
Take care of the boring research. That's right.
Thank you, Katie. Next question is the content the same, though, for Elevate and Discovery, and just the interface is different? Yes, the content is the same between Elevate and Discovery, and the interface is just different. Todd, did you want to elaborate on that, or is that pretty much?
Yeah, and I think we'll know a little more clearly what that looks like as we dive into the Elevate updates after we've launched Discovery.
Thank you. Are there consumables, or do we have to hunt and print like the old version? Todd, did you want to answer this one?
Yeah, there are consumables, so we'll have little books, decodable books, letter books, and then student transfer books for the teacher to be able to use in the classroom.
And that's going to take the place of you having to go to Reading Horizons Accelerate. And like you mentioned, having to print off those resources. Everything is already built in.
Yeah, that's a huge thing, Sean, where don't even worry about Accelerate at this point. We've done the hard work of trying to decipher what resources relate to each lesson, and we have integrated those into every lesson, so you don't have to go looking for them anymore. You can feel confident that they're right there in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Is the teaching of vocabulary covered in this program? Katie?
Absolutely. So with vocabulary, we use a 4-part processor model. So students hear the sound of the word. We explicitly teach them how to spell it. We attach meaning to it. And then we use the word in a sentence to create context. All of that is scripted out for teachers in your teacher manual. So anytime you're introducing a new word in what we call dictation, that's our multisensory piece, you will be addressing the vocabulary with that as well.
And the focus is definitely on tier 2 vocabulary. So not keeping it at the ground level. We really want to elevate our students as well.
Good point.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Katie. Does the new platform include both the phonemic awareness lesson and the sound wall lesson integrated with the phonics lesson? The short answer is yes, it does, but Todd could more than likely provide a more detailed answer.
I was going to defer to Sean or Katie, if that's okay.
Take it. Yeah. So that is embedded now. That will be part of your warm up. If you are a current customer, you're familiar with the daily core 4, that gradual release of responsibility. You'll teach it right before that. And it takes that speech to print approach. So you start with the phoneme, then you bring it into and introduce the grapheme or letter of the day. The really cool thing about the screencast and the broadcast tool is that you're only going to have the letters or graphemes that you've taught so far. So a good example is if you're teaching K and you're on the spelling with CK lesson, you're not going to have CK on there just yet because you haven't taught that at the end of the words yet. So your graphics will already display, here's what I've taught so far, and then you'll unveil the new letters as you get to that point in the scope and sequence. All embedded.
Yes, thank you, Katie. We have one more. Is the scope and sequence changing? I think that I remember hearing that R-controlled vowels were moving to be taught sooner. Katie, Sean?
Yeah, so those will be bumped up to 1st grade based on many different requests from teachers. So those will be taught sooner. We're bringing some of, if you're familiar with the program, we're bringing some of the phonetic skills earlier, even into kindergarten. We're starting kindergarten with more like an alphabet boot camp. Sean, what am I missing?
The order of letters is changing as well to focus on high utility letters and letters that are easier for students to blend. So instead of starting with B and A, we're going to start off with B and M, because ma is easier to blend than ba. So that's some of the many changes, but we'd be happy if you scan that QR code. We'd be happy to go more into depth about the scope and sequence as well. It's all aligned with the research, all aligned with the science.
Thank you both. And that was the last question that we had. And we are about at the end of our time. I just want to thank you all again for joining us today for our product webinar. I want to thank Sean and Katie for presenting and Todd for being here to answer questions. I just want to provide a little reminder that an email will be going out more than likely tomorrow morning with a recording of this session. So be on the lookout for that so you can share it with your colleagues. So, and again, thank you for joining us this late afternoon, this evening, early evening, wherever you are in the US. And I hope you have a great rest of your evening.